On this episode of For the Tech of It, Linux Mint, the OS for practically anyone. So today we're going to cover a few topics here. First, we'll talk about navigating the Linux Mint Cinnamon desktop. After that, we'll go into customizing the desktop. Then we'll talk about installing and removing software. And of course, we want to take a look at how you use common applications for general computing tasks. And I'll offer you some final thoughts. All right, so let's dive into the Linux Mint Cinnamon desktop. Okay, first time you boot up Linux Mint, you'll be presented by the Linux Mint welcome screen. And the welcome screen is broken into 5 main categories. There's, of course, the welcome, some first steps, and you can scroll through this list. It covers everything from setting your desktop colors to the panel layout. This is your panel down here. Setting up system snapshots, and they provide really good descriptions as to what each of these are. Your driver manager, update manager, system settings, software manager, and firewall settings. The third category is, of course, documentation. So it talks about where you can view the Linux Mint documentation, new features of Linux Mint, and release notes for this particular release. Click on Help, where you can go to the Linux Mint forums to provide help, or the Internet Relay chat rooms to get help in real time. And finally, Contribute. All right, so let's minimize this because I'll cover some of these topics here during the rest of the episode. So the first thing you'll want to definitely do, and you can find this in the welcome screen under First Steps. Let's scroll back up a bit. The Update Manager. You want to apply any system updates that you're presented with. So if you look down here on the right side of our panel, you'll see this little icon. And this little icon is what's called the System Updates Notifier icon. And notice right now it says there are 2 updates available. If you click this, the Update Manager opens. And the Update Manager gives you a list of what applications you have available in Linux Mint and whether or not there are installs for it. And it's as simple as clicking the Install Updates button, putting your password, clicking Authenticate, and then what Linux Mint will do, it'll connect up to a server, download those files, and install the updates for you. Now, every once in a while, depending on what's updated, you may be prompted by Linux Mint to reboot. Now, you're not forced to reboot right away. You can reboot later. So unlike with Windows 10, where sometimes you're presented with a reboot option and there's really no way to prevent it from happening, the system will reboot on you. With Linux Mint, it just notifies you that in order for these updates to be applied, you will eventually have to reboot your system. So in this case, there's really no need to reboot because there's no message here stating that you want to reboot. So looking at the Linux Mint desktop, it's very clean. I've actually gone through and added this trash folder and created a sample folder called My Folder to show you that it's easy to create icons and folders on your desktop. You just right-click, create new folder. You can create a new document right on the desktop. You can add what are called desklets, right? So if you want a clock, or we can even download others here. Calendar, there are a whole slew of different type of desklets that you can set up for Linux Mint. And I'll let you look at those yourself. You have down here in the panel, and this panel you can move around. So the panel, if you click on Move, some folks like their panel at the top. It's as simple as right-clicking, choosing Move, and saying put it on the left. So you can do left, the right side of the screen. Let's move it there. Move over here and click. So you can do left, top, right, as well as bottom. So very easy to move it around. Also, you have some default shortcuts here. We're already running the welcome screen, so let me close that. So you have access to your file manager. This is the Linux Mint file manager. The Linux Mint terminal. The Firefox web browser, which ships with Linux Mint by default. And this is Firefox. And of course the Linux Mint application menu. So the application menu, if you notice on the left, you have some favorites here. So by default, they'll include Firefox, the Linux Mint Software Manager, which we'll look at later during the install and remove software segment of the episode. System settings, I'll open that. And here's where, and we'll talk about this in the customizing session here. You can change backgrounds, do desktop effects, choose different fonts, apply themes. They're just this is actually the system settings is synonymous with the old control panel or the settings panel in Windows 10. So here's where you make different types of system settings changes. Of course, it has terminal, and you can add and remove from this list. It's as simple as going in and saying, I don't want the files here anymore, so I'm going to drag it off, and it disappears. If you want to add, let's say we want to put the calculator over here, I can right-click on Calculator and choose Add to Panel, which it would make it appear down here, Add to the Desktop, which it'll create an icon here, or Add to Favorites, which it'll place it over here. So for now, let's just add it to Favorites. I'll right-click, or you can uninstall the application. So we'll add it to Favorites, and there it is. And you can reposition these by dragging and dropping. And here's a calculator. Now if you look, Linux Mint Cinnamon actually creates different categories for you. There's all applications, and you can scroll through this list. Accessories, graphics, internet. I installed Google Chrome, but by default it comes with Firefox only. Office, it includes a full LibreOffice suite of applications. Sound and video, administrative tools, preferences, places, and of course recent files. And you can clear that list. You've got your clock and calendar. You've got volume control here where you can adjust your sound settings. Of course, your network connection, and I just showed you the update manager. And now that I've shown you the desktop, let's take a look at what it takes to customize it to your own liking. Okay, so customizing the Linux Mint desktop is very easy. You can do the customization either here through the Welcome application, or you can go into the system settings. Let's do that here from system settings. Where is it? Here we go. So if you look in system settings here at this top piece under the appearance, we have 4 different options. Let's start with backgrounds. So as you can see right now, Linux Mint comes with really nice background by default, but you can either choose a different background, one of the ones that they automatically include with the product, and you can go back to other versions. So for example, if you like more outdoors type of look, trees, they may even have some mountains in here somewhere, like a valley. It looks really nice. So you can really go to town with it. You can also add your own pictures. So if you have pictures in the pictures folder, and when I talk about the pictures folder, let me get rid of this one here. We'll delete that. And if we go to the File Explorer, you're presented with some default folders here: Desktop, Documents, Music, Pictures, Videos, and Downloads. So if you have pictures that you've taken with your camera, you can upload those pictures here into Linux Mint, put them in a pictures folder, or if you want to, you can browse for a different folder. So you may have, let's say, a new folder called My Pictures, My Family, Photos. So you click Open, and now as you see, this My Family Photos folder has been added, and you can begin to put pictures in there. Another good thing about it, and I like about this, is that if you go to Settings, let's say you have multiple backgrounds that you want to cycle through, Linux Mint has the ability to present it as a slideshow. See, as you noticed, I clicked that on, excuse me, I clicked it on, and it changed dynamically. And you can set the delay in minutes right here. You can play images in random order, specify if you want to zoom it, scale it, stretch to the screen, center it on the screen, or what have you. So now, let me just do 1 minute. So every minute, the images will cycle through the images in whatever folder you've chosen. So we'll leave that there. Actually, let's go back into Settings because I want to show you a few more things. So under Effects, there are different window effects that you can enable, effects on dialog boxes and menus. You can turn this stuff on or off. You can customize different effects. So you see every minute the background is going to cycle to a new background image. Font selection. So let's say we want to change the font here in this title bar. We can either choose a different font entirely. Let's say this one. Oh, well, not that one. Let's pick a better one. And we want it to be a bit bigger. Look at what's happened. You can change the default fonts. Your desktop fonts, we can change that. We'll make it a little bigger. Notice that the font size changed here. Scaling factor. So if you have a very high resolution display, like a 4K display or something, you can adjust the scaling factor, let's say 1.25, scaling factor. Everything begins to blow up a bit, 1.4, 1.5. So I use this because I have a high DPI display. Themes. This is the one I think you all would really like here. So window borders, you have a selection here. I actually added this one called Adapt to Nocto, and I'll show you how I did that. We can go with a mint-wide dark border here. We can choose a different icon set. Let's say mint-wide dark brown. Your controls, we can choose dark here. The mouse pointer, we can change that as well. The desktop look, if we look in the menu here, watch how this changes. We go to, let's say, Linux Mint. That changed it a little. Let's go to Cinnamon. Even the style of the menu has changed, and it's somewhat translucent. So you can customize this every which way, and you can add or remove different themes. So there's an entire list here. The one that I added was called Adapt to Nocto. So if we go back and we choose the Adapt to Nocto theme, and I'm going to put, we'll stick with the brown. Adapt to Nocto. And we'll do the same thing for the menu and the panel. So definitely play with these. There's so many in here that you can add. Windows 10 Lite theme. Let's take a look at this one. Let's see what the Windows 10 Lite theme looks like. So I'll install that. I'll go back. And let's see where we can find that theme. Where is it? Windows 10. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, wow. Is there one here? Here we are. Windows 10. Not sure if there's a Windows 10 icon set included with this or not. And we'll do Windows 10. But I digress. Let's just put this back. I'm not a huge Windows 10 fan. We'll stick with this one. So from a customization standpoint, Linux Mint Cinnamon lets you customize it every which way from Sunday. So even the File Explorer here now takes on that look and feel. So that's the customization. Now on to the fun stuff, adding and removing software. Adding and removing software to Linux Mint is very, very easy. If we go to the Linux Mint Applications menu, we move up to the Software Manager right here, or you can just type the word software and the menu will filter it out. Here's Software Manager. We'll click here and we'll launch the Linux Mint Software Manager. Now, maximize the screen, make it a little bit easier for you to read. So the Linux Mint Software Manager is very well organized, and it's filled with literally hundreds, if not thousands, of free and open source applications. So at the top here, you'll see some of the more commonly downloaded and installed applications for the Linux Mint Software Manager. And then you have different categories: accessories, internet, sound and video, Flatpak, all applications, what have you. If we click all applications, you can scroll through the list, and there are quite a few here. I like the categories a lot. So if I'm looking for, I don't know, let's say a game, we'll click Games, and let's say we want to install SuperTux, for example. We click the SuperTux icon, and Linux Mint's Software Manager gives you a nice, for most of the applications, you'll get a really nice screenshot of it, see what it looks like. You'll get some ratings from others who have downloaded and played the game or whatever the application happens to be. And installing it is as simple as clicking the Install button, entering your password, and then the installation process will begin. Now, how long it takes to install really just depends on how big that application is. In this case, SuperTux isn't very large, so we'll just wait a few moments for it to complete. So while it's doing that, I wanted to take a moment. Well, actually, it's done. That was pretty quick, quicker than I thought. So now if we close out of this and we go into the Games menu, you'll now see SuperTux. And here's SuperTux. So installing software is as simple as what I've just illustrated to you. And it really doesn't matter which application it is. There's Spotify, Blender for those of you who like creating images or what have you, GNOME Maps, Google Earth, Audacity, which is you can use it to record audio. And there are quite a few different Office applications. And the ones with the check marks indicate that that particular piece of software is already installed. So, LibreOffice Writer is already installed on the system. Uninstalling software is every bit as easy. So if we go and look at, let's see, I think it's installed applications. So these are some of the ones that I installed. If you want to remove SuperTux, for example, you click here, click on Remove, enter the password, and Linux Mint will remove the software. So if we go to Games, so Games is gone because that was the only game I had, so SuperTux has been removed. Also, if we want to, let's say, remove, another way to uninstall actually is by going to that application here in the menu, right-clicking on it, and clicking Uninstall. Put the password. It's just a dialog box to acknowledge that you want to remove it. You can either hit Cancel or OK. You click OK. And now, Google Chrome should be gone. So Linux Mint makes it very, very easy to both install as well as remove software from your system. Okay, let's not mistake Linux Mint's ease of use for lack of capability. It's great for business and professional use, personal productivity and finance, entertainment, and education use as well, and that's kindergarten through college. There are a plethora of applications available to you with Linux Mint. Watch movies, play games, you name it, you can pretty much find that software available to you. Okay, some final thoughts and suggestions. So installing Linux Mint is really easy. I will include the link in the show notes to the Linux Mint website that provides you with a very well laid out step-by-step process to get Linux Mint installed. So do check that out. Also, it's important to recognize that Linux is not Windows and it is not macOS. Although you can get some Windows applications to run within Linux using a product called Wine, and I'll include a link to Wine in the show notes as well. The three operating systems are very different. They're not natively compatible with one another. macOS shares a little bit more in common with Linux than does Windows. But what you want to look for is software that's cross-platform. So LibreOffice is a perfect example. LibreOffice has a Windows version, a macOS version, and a Linux version. Now, what I like a lot about Linux Mint is that it's very easy to set up. It's easy to use, as you've seen. So it's really a great operating system for both beginners and professionals alike. I mean, no, it doesn't matter if you're running some complex engineering application, doing word processing, web browsing, checking your email, or what have you. Linux Mint is a great operating system to help enable you to do those tasks. And finally, please support the free and open source software organizations like the Linux Mint folks, the people who make a lot of the software that you see in the Linux Mint Software Manager. If you enjoy using any of that software, definitely consider making a donation to those folks. It really helps them out. So that's all I have for today. Thank you for joining me. Please click that like button and click that subscribe button, as it really helps me to figure out, if I'm on the right track at providing you with content that you find useful and interesting. Talk to you later.